Hey everybody, this is the fourth here, and welcome to part 8 of my mixing tutorial series, which is about timing. In the last section of this tutorial, I mentioned that very slight time adjustments can help you correct certain phase problems, but timing can also play another role in regards to mixing as well. So sometimes, and this is pretty rare, but sometimes certain sounds just won't want to go together well if played at the same time. And so you might want to keep them separate in your mix. Now, let's say that you have two really big leads in your track, and each lead really fills up the frequency spectrum, and it just produces a really big sound. And when you play those two leads together, they really don't come through the mix very well. They kind of fight each other and muddy up the mix, and you just lose a lot of clarity, and the resulting sound isn't very good. Maybe you've tried a bunch of different techniques to get them to play together nicely, but you can't quite get it to work. And since these leads are both so huge, you might consider playing them at different times in the track rather than having them play together. Now, this isn't something that you'll always be able to do, because maybe those two leads playing together is really important to the composition of the track. Maybe there's some kind of harmony going on between those two synths that is really important. And a really amazing mixing artist could probably get them to fit together well in the mix. A really great mixing artist could probably get any set of sounds to fit together pretty well in a mix. But even then, there are certain occasions where it would be worth considering doing this, if it's not vital that those sounds play at the same time. And for me personally, this is only something that I've done very rarely. I have two examples that I'll show you, but it's definitely not something that I've done very commonly at all. So the first example I have here is an older crunk club dance track. And what I've done is I have a couple different parts of the song. It has an 808 in it, and it also has a bass sound in it. So I'll play parts of this song so you can hear that. So you can hear that it has that 808 going on in the bass. And then up here, it changes a little bit. Something else starts to happen in the bass. So you can hear that I have a big bass drop, and then I have this other bass synth. And you can actually hear the bass synth playing when I play the 808 as well at certain points in the track. But the difference is that when it plays during this part of the track with the 808, it doesn't play the sub-bass layer of that bass. It just plays the bass saw synth on its own. And you will also hear during the bass drop of this section that I also don't play the sub bass of this bass synth. And you can see in the spectrogram that, this kind of bass pattern down here isn't playing while this bass drops. But you can hear the higher frequencies of the bass saw synth. It's just not that sine wave sublayer that I had. And if I was really a huge fan of this bass line, I might try to make it play along with the 808, including that sub bass when it plays around this part of the song. Or I might try to have it play during the bass drop as well. But really, if I were to do that, there'd just be way too much going on in the fairly low bass frequencies, and it would just really not sound good. There'd just be too much stuff going on in that bass, different frequencies doing different things, and it really wouldn't be desirable. It would really not sound that great. So I kind of sacrificed this bass that maybe I really liked, because I knew that that sub isn't really important to be heard during this bass drop. When you hear the bass drop, you can focus on the bass drop just fine, and you don't really miss the sub bass in this bass synth. And the same thing for when it plays with the 808. Your focus is kind of on the 808 and you don't really miss that bass. So this is one example where I've just, not played that sub bass layer at the same time as the pitch drop or the 808 because I knew it just wasn't going to work in the mix. Even though, you might have thought it would sound better just because you don't want that bass to disappear or something. You might have thought that, but in reality, it's much better this way. And I have another example here in a much more recent track of mine. And in this track, it's regarding the kick and the snare sound. So if you listen to this track, you'll hear that both the kick and the snare are, really quite powerful. They both have a lot of frequencies and they both push pretty hard. So you can hear the kick has, it's a unique kick. It's kind of like a hard style kick with that talk sound. So it has a really big punch to it. You can really hear it has that talk sound to it. And right here during this section of the song. So the way I originally wrote it was I had this kick that plays right here. It was playing with this snare. So instead of sounding kind of like this, instead of the snare and then going boom, 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 it was the snare played at the same time as the kick. So it was like boom, boom, boom. And, I liked how it sounded that way. But when I was trying to get the mix down right, there was just way too much. And, it could have sounded all right, except for the fact that I was trying to get the mix to be, loud. And with both of those playing together, it really made the waveform of the overall track peak way too much at that instance. And I knew that I would end up in the mastering phase have to limit that or saturate it, and I really didn't think that it was going to be that great. And it didn't even sound that great when they did play together, honestly. It was just too many frequencies hitting you too hard all at the same time, because you had this kick and then this snare. And it was just way too hard, So what I ended up doing was I just moved this kick over. I tried a couple things first. I tried maybe playing it, having the kick and then just the clap layer of the snare. So if you listen to the snare, you should hear a snare and then a clap layer. So I tried just this clap layer and that sounded weird. And so I ended up deciding, okay, I'll just move that kick over. And It turned out that I actually like it better this way, I do think, composition-wise. I kind of like the drop of the kick when that snare hits, and then the kind of almost syncopated feel to the kick afterwards when it comes back in. So this is just another example that I have where I have changed the timing of certain sounds just because it didn't really work well the way I had it originally in the mix. And like I said before, this isn't something that you'll have to do very often, but in some cases, if you're having a really hard time getting a certain set of sounds to fit nicely together, you might consider seeing if you can change it slightly and maybe play a certain lead in a different section of the song instead of trying to cram it all together at once, or whatever like that. So this isn't something you'll probably do very often, but maybe it will come in handy and be helpful at some point in the future.